Jasmine Crockett loses IT as Karoline Leavitt confronts her to her face. The Capitol was already humming with electricity that morning, journalists whispering over their coffee, security details scanning faces more intently than usual, and interns rushing through the marbled corridors of power. Word had spread quickly. Today's House Oversight Committee hearing wasn't going to be just another political ping-pong match. There was something different in the air. Something personal. At the center of the storm were two rising political forces on a collision course. Representative Jasmine Crockett, the outspoken Democrat from Texas, known for her fiery rhetoric and unfiltered commentary, and Karoline Leavitt, the sharp, unapologetic White House press secretary whose recent ascension had ruffled more than a few feathers. Tension between them had been brewing for weeks. Crockett had made a habit of singling Karoline out during interviews, calling her a mouthpiece for deception, and accusing her of pushing state-sponsored lies in her daily briefings. But it wasn't just political theater anymore. Jasmine had gone further. She'd taken personal shots, mocking Karoline's upbringing, questioning her qualifications, and even making insinuations about her family's integrity. It was brutal, it was raw, and it was very, very public. Karoline had remained composed through it all. She always had. But she knew this couldn't go unanswered, not anymore. She wasn't just a spokeswoman. She was a woman with principles, and silence in the face of that kind of disrespect would only signal weakness. And Karoline Leavitt was anything but weak. She arrived early that morning, not to sit quietly in the back row, but with purpose. Dressed in a striking magenta blazer that stood out like a lightning bolt in the sea of somber navy suits, Karoline made her way through the Capitol with poise. Eyes followed her. Cameras trailed her. And she didn't flinch. The hearing itself had started with the usual partisan volleys, statements, counterstatements, passive-aggressive sniping masked as questions. Crockett, seated near the center, was already in rare form, leaning into the mic with practiced flair, delivering zingers to the Republican panel members and earning chuckles from her allies. But as the chairman called for a short recess, the moment arrived. Karoline rose from her observer's seat and strode deliberately toward the committee dais. Conversations around the room faded into murmurs and then into stunned silence. All eyes snapped to her as she stopped just a few feet from Representative Crockett, her posture commanding but not aggressive. Confident. Focused. "Congresswoman Crockett," Karoline said, her voice like glass, smooth, clear, sharp. Jasmine looked up, her brows raised, a half-smirk forming. "Oh, the White House sent their favorite spin doctor down here personally?" Karoline didn't take the bait. She took a breath, then leaned in slightly. Not close enough to crowd, but enough to make it intimate. "I came here on my own," she replied, her voice still calm. "Because while I expect criticism in this job, what I won't accept are the attacks on my character, my upbringing, or my family. You crossed a line. And I'm standing here, face to face, to tell you that ends now." A gasp rose from one of the interns. Phones were already up. Reporters scribbled frantically. The confrontation was no longer a matter of political gossip. It was live history unfolding. Jasmine pushed her chair back and stood, her expression hardening. "Oh, please. Don't come in here with your rehearsed indignation," she snapped, pointing a manicured finger at Karoline. "You stand up there every day and spin fairy tales to protect a failing administration. Now you want sympathy? Wrong room, sweetheart." Karoline didn't blink. "This isn't about politics. This is about respect. And whether you agree with me or not, I deserve the same respect you demand for yourself." The air in the room felt like it had been sucked out. The moment was taut. Everyone was holding their breath. Jasmine's voice rose. "You want to talk about respect? Respect isn't earned behind a podium with teleprompters. You're a fraud, propped up to look polished while this country burns." There it was. The explosion. Crockett's voice echoed off the chamber walls, her face flushed with anger. Several aides began stepping forward, unsure whether to intervene. A few members of the committee exchanged wide-eyed glances. The chair looked like he was trying to decide whether to gavel or grab popcorn. But Karoline didn't budge. No shouting. No rebuttal. Just unwavering resolve. She met Jasmine's eyes, her tone low but cutting. "That says more about you than it ever could about me." And with that, she turned on her heel and walked away, heels clicking like punctuation marks in a room full of stunned silence. She didn't need to win a shouting match. She had made her point with grace and steel. By the time Karoline exited the building, her phone was buzzing nonstop. The confrontation had already gone viral. Watch. Press Secretary Leavitt silences Crockett in live confrontation. Crockett meltdown or mic drop moment. DC divided. Face-to-face firestorm. Political showdown stuns Capitol. The video was everywhere. News networks looped the exchange in prime time. Hashtags like hashtag Leavitt versus Crockett and hashtag Press Secretary Power trended for hours. Even late-night hosts couldn't resist referencing it in their monologues. But Karoline wasn't chasing headlines. Hours later, tucked in the corner of a quiet cafe near DuPont Circle, she stirred her espresso and scrolled silently through the flood of messages, some supportive, some critical, most in awe. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply sipped her coffee, exhaled, and whispered under her breath. That was for the women who've been told to sit down and take it. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stand up and speak face to face.